Toot, 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 toot. I am going to try very hard on today's edition of Everything Yesterday This Morning to get back to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I know they've been running long. I'm sorry. I just get so worked up and then I have to keep going. A Twitter shareholder has sued Elon Musk, alleging that he did not disclose his stake in Twitter soon enough. The lawsuit was filed in a Manhattan federal court on Tuesday by Mark Bain Rosella. The suit alleges that Musk was required to disclose his stake by March 24th, but didn't until April 4th. When he disclosed his stake, the company's share price went up 27%. The lawsuit argues that investors who sold Twitter stock between March 24th and April 4th lost out on gains they would have realized if he had disclosed his stake earlier, and by delaying his disclosure, he was able to continue buying shares of Twitter at a reduced price. I think this is interesting. And I will be even further interested to see if a number of board members were aware of the decision for him to buy, and they also in fact took advantage of that and even perhaps asked Musk to delay his time frame by which he made his announcement. That is an interesting thing. I mean, if that's what he did, if he did it intentionally, then fuck. It's just another example of when you're in the know, you know, and those of us that don't. During the pandemic, housing inventory dropped as sellers hesitated to put their homes up on the market. The lack of supply created a boom in home prices, and even currently, people are still charging a premium for properties that would have fetched a lot less money just a couple years ago. Even with the low supply, buyers still had something to work with because mortgage rates had fallen to record lows during the second half of 2020 and managed to maintain through 2021. Thanks to the Fed, though, rates have risen sharply. Since just the start of the year, it was possible to secure a 30-year mortgage for well under 4%. Now the average is just over 5%, which creates the worst position for buyers since 2007. Based on current mortgage rates, the typical U.S. household would have to spend 29% of its monthly income to make a mortgage payment on an average priced home. This is for first time home buyers. People who are current homeowners are sitting on record levels of equity right now. May the 3rd through the 4th, the Fed meets once again, and my guess is the interest rates for homes will only get less affordable as time goes on, and we will see the housing bubble burst. Inflation soared over the past year at its fastest pace in more than 40 years, with costs for food, gasoline, housing, and other necessities squeezing American consumers and wiping out the pay raises that many people have received. Pay raises. Are they calling the stimulus checks pay raises? The Labor Department said Tuesday the CPI jumped 8.5% in March, which is the sharpest year over year increase since 1981. Prices have been driven up by bottleneck supply chains, robust consumer demand, and disruption to global food and energy markets worsened by Russia's war against Ukraine. I do not argue or contend that any of those have not been contributing factors. However, the fact that no one discusses that the Fed pumped trillions of funny money dollars into circulation is interesting. Economists note that as the economy has emerged from the depths of the pandemic, consumers have been gradually broadening their spending beyond goods to include more services. A result is that high inflation, which at first reflected mainly a shortage of goods, has recently been emerging in services too. The expected fast pace of the Fed's rate increase will make loans sharply more expensive for consumers and businesses. Many economists say they worry that the Fed has waited too long to begin raising rates and might end up acting so aggressively to trigger a recession. Who predicted that? Inflation, which has been largely under control for 4 decades, began began to accelerate last spring as the United States and global economies rebounded with unexpected speed and strength from the brief but devastating coronavirus recession that began in the spring of 2020. Forced recession. You forced that. The Biden administration is to announce $750 million more in weapons for Ukraine, adding to the more than $1.7 billion in security assistance already provided by you and I. Or you and me. You and me. The really interesting thing is that this is being done without the approval of Congress through the equipment will be funded using the Presidential Drawdown Authority, in which the president can authorize the transfer of articles and services from U.S. stocks without congressional approval in response to an emergency. Separately, the Pentagon will host leaders from the top 8 U.S. weapons manufacturers today to discuss the industry's capacity to meet Ukraine's weapons needs if the war with Russia lasts years. In addition to that, Russian ambassador to the United States, Anthony Anatoly Antonov. God, I'm so great at these names, man. Said, I guess like late Friday, he made some comments. He said, Western states are directly involved in the current events as they continue to pump Ukraine with weapons and ammunitions, thereby inciting further bloodshed. Even before the fighting began, the United States and other nations had sent hundreds of anti tank and anti aircraft launchers to Ukraine. Last week, the United States supplied another $300 million worth of weapons to Ukraine, including the Switchblade drones that I had mentioned previously, the human killing variety, and the tank killing variety. Antonov went on to say, we warn that such actions are dangerous and provocative as they are directed against our state. They can lead the United States and Russia onto the path of direct military confrontation. Any supplies of weapons and military equipment from the West performed by transport convoys through the territory of Ukraine is a legitimate military target for our forces. Despite Russia's shifting war objectives, Antonov said that their demands for a settlement to the conflict remain the same. An unconditional consideration of Russia's security interests, the demilitarization and denazification of the Ukrainian state, ensuring its neutral and non-nuclear status, as well as the recognition of Russian sovereignty over Crimea and the independence of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic. I believe that peace negotiations are still going on between Ukraine and Russia, but I have not been following that as closely because there have been great things going on within our own country. I have kept it within 10 minutes, and I'm proud of myself for that, so I'm going to end it here today. I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you have a great day. Mwah.